Hello, this is Katie. This is Halloween card series number 5. This is actually a pretty quick card, but still very cute. So I've pre-cut some of the pieces and I'll explain those as I go a little bit. The first thing I want to do is stick some of this pumpkin paper. It's from the Doodlebug pad. This is the 6x6, so it's scaled down, so the pumpkins are a little smaller. It's the Ghouls and Goodies paper pad. I just thought this was so cute. I think I got 2 of the big packs, the 12x12s, and one of these just to stock up because they were so cute. So I went with the pumpkin, and I want to put it on the bottom half, but a little less than half. So I'm going to cut the 5.5 strip. This is a 5.5 opening, like a book. So I cut it at 5.5 here and scored it at 4.25 on my scoreboard. So we'll cut it at 5.5 wide, and this opens up so I can get that far. I might go a tiny bit over 5.5 because they usually tend to not match up, even though I measured them both kind of the same. And then 4.25, so 2 1/8 would be about half the height of the card. I'm going to go to 1.75. We'll move that out of the way. So this is going to go right along the bottom there. So I'll use my tape gun here to run the tape along the back. And I run it around all the edges, and once in the middle, I just want to make sure it's stuck down good. I am not stingy with my supplies. That would have been upside down pumpkins. Let's not do that. So pay attention to the direction of your patterned paper. So I did cut it a teeny bit extra and it fit almost perfectly. If there is any tiny bit left over, some detail scissors, like the Cutter Bees, will get that just fine, and you'll end up with like a little spirally, very thin piece of paper. So we have that part stuck down, and the next part in the middle is going to be a thin green strip. So we'll want to cut that. I'll probably do that at, I want to say that I want to do about 1/2 inch. That should be good. So that's that glitter paper from the Die Cuts with a View Glitzy Glitter. It's that first green right there. This is the one that didn't cut very well with the spiderweb background I did in one of the other Halloween videos. I don't remember which number it was. Because it almost becomes fabric and very stringy when you try to do a very complicated background die like that. So I eventually figured it out, but it did not want to come free. So alright, so I just want to put some glue on the back of that. Make sure I don't have any over on the front. You can usually just fold it around the back and then you won't see it. And I'll just start, I'm going to basically create a seam. So I'll go over half the white and half the pumpkin. I'll go off the edge, and then we'll cut off the end of that piece. Okay, so we have the base of the card there. I'm going to emboss the Happy Haunting stamp from My Favorite Things Spooky Sentiments. It's that one in the middle. I'm going to emboss this white on the orange. So I want to use my embossing powder bag to get rid of any static. The little powder pieces will cling to different areas, and unless you have something like a paintbrush, I just use this to get rid of them after you've sprinkled it and shaken it off. They tend to stick everywhere, and it takes too long to clean up with a paintbrush, so it's just better to not have it cling in the first place. You could probably also use a dryer sheet, I'm sure, since they serve the same purpose. So make sure this is good and inked up, and I'm going to stamp this in the center, or as centered as I can get it, and I'll just use my fingernail to kind of peel that off the bottom. Hopefully that's all right there. And I shake my embossing powder over printer paper. And since this one has the image covering almost the whole thing, I'll probably want to use tweezers if I can find them. Maybe, maybe not. Here they are. So I'll hold on to them with tweezers and then take the white embossing powder and shake that over it. Then just kind of tap it off and it should be fine. And where the tweezers were holding it kind of gathered some as well, so you just want to take those off. Set this aside. I'll put it in the tweezers. Just kind of clean the powder off of that. Set it aside in the tweezers so I can get the powder back in the little bucket here. Close that up. Then I'm going to use my heat gun to melt this here. And I think I'll zoom in for the rest of this, so hang on one sec. This might get a little shaky. Okay, that should help. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and melt this with my gun. And you can kind of see it turning a more solid white as I go. That's the powder melting. The best part of embossing. Just really fun. And it's not quite centered on the orange, but that's alright. So we'll set that aside to let it cool for just a second. You can touch that almost immediately, but I would give it a second to settle before you start sticking your fingers in it. So I have another part to do while we're waiting for that part to dry. See here. On some white scrap paper, I'm going to stamp the little bat from Mama Elephant's Bootastic set, this little guy here. And I mentioned in another video, I did permanently stain him with some chalk ink. So I do not recommend chalk ink on your clear stamps because it will stay. It was a very dark gray, if I remember. But he's completely clean and none of that transfers to this day. So you'll see I'm using the smoke, the very light gray from Mama Elephant. And he inks up just fine. So I want a couple of these guys that we're going to die cut out with the matching die cut. So I have the die cut here from the Bootastic die cut set. And I do want to separate these. I don't know why. I just don't want to run the second one through if I'm not actually cutting it, I guess. So, oops. Get my big shot here. It's a little zoomed in there. And I don't really need to stick this down with a Post-it or anything. It should stay still. I will hold it down with the plates very slowly and carefully and then just run that through. So I have one little bat finished. He can fly off the edge there. Then we'll do our second bat. Oops. It's a little better. Let's see how this one comes out. And he's perfect. So, set those two guys aside. And I don't need the big shot for anything else. So now I'm going to stick this directly to the black and we're going to raise up the whole piece on foam tape. So I'll use my tape runner on the back of the orange circle. And if it curled a little bit while you're embossing it, just make sure you've got some tape or glue all over so that it helps stick down those curvy edges, or else it might curl up on the black as well. Or just try and straighten it out maybe before you stick it down as well. Either way. Alright, so we'll stick that part down. And this is going to go right about here, raised up on some foam tape. So I'm just going to use my foam roll here, and I can just tear that off. It's not too precise. It's not a little small item. I'm going to raise up the bats as well, so I'm going to actually cut their foam tape because it'll be a little more detailed. I'm just going to put it right behind the little bat head, so I'll need to cut little squares for it. But this one is fine as it is, so I'll stick that right there. And then for the little bats, I will cut 2 little squares out of this piece. And hopefully these aren't too big for the back of the bat. Put one of these guys up here. And then another one right there. And then for the rest of the card, I have some gemstones. So I have these little mini strips. These are actually connected on one long strip. So if I peel it up, you'll notice. And then I just cut these off one by one with my scissors. And I use my scissors, since it kind of sticks to it, as tweezers off of my finger to kind of pick it up and place it where I want it. So I'm just going to choose a few of these. These ones are individually glue dotted to the sheet. I want one of the big ones. So I do use the scissors like tweezers. They're very sharp, so they grab on well to the little gems. Let's see here. So we'll stick one of these guys up here. We'll get the smallest one from this set, which is probably that next size up from my baby ones. And then grab this guy and put that. See, sometimes you'll grab them and they're silver and the sticky gets left behind, so now that's just a not sticky gem. They're not always the greatest quality, but these are pretty good. I can't remember what brand they are because I always pull them off of their sheets and put them in little baggies. Alright, so that is our card. We lifted up the bats and the happy haunting on the black scallop. I forgot to mention, I punched the circle out of this Fiskars circle punch. I couldn't tell you how wide it is. I want to say 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, but probably 1.5 inches. There was a plastic little window here that flipped up, so in case you wanted to punch a lot and collect them and then open it, kind of like a hole punch, I guess, you could do that, but I only really do 1 or 2 at a time, so I just took off the little plastic windows that were on these because it's just easier for me. And the scallop was this Marvy Uchida, or Uchida, I don't know how to say that. Big scallop punch. Again, I don't know how wide it is across, but I've had this probably for a few years now. So that is where I got those 2 pieces from, and you saw me do the rest. So there it is. Thank you for coming by, and come back for number 6. Thanks. Bye.